Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Frank's Corner. How are we all doing today? It's a sad day for me. I guess it doesn't really matter for everybody else. Sad day for me though. We've apparently invaded Venezuela, took their president and wife and family hostage. We are now international war criminals because there's nothing we can say that actually justifies us invading another country. And that's in violation of some UN terms. I forgot, I was reading it's like Article 2 or something. So, yes, we are now in a dictatorship. That Donald Trump himself is in his Hexeth. They're just invading countries like Russia. So now I guess we're just on the same level as Russia. Isn't that nice? We've dropped our country's status down to scumbags. That's too funny. Scumbags. I mean, yeah, we are the scumbags. Not much to say about it. Uh-uh. I'm just fascinated, and I ain't even got a lie. I'm fascinated the fact that we actually did it. It's interesting, you know, that this happened. I don't know why this happened, but it shouldn't have happened. Uh, I guess the more Donald Trump stays in office, the more problems we're going to have, and the sadder I'll probably get as time goes by. Because I can't believe we would actually stoop that low as to do the things we're doing. Isn't that kind of sad? I have a friend that one claims to be a Christian, two, he works for the government, and he worked under Biden, now he's under Donald Trump, and it's weird how his opinions have swapped from what when Biden was in office to now that Donald Trump's in office. I find this interesting because they put out so much false information in the government now, he just believes whatever they shovel out to him. And he'll stand on, well, the government's not going to lie. The government's not going to do this. I'm not sure what planet he lives on anymore, but apparently it's not this planet in this country because the Politico just named the year of 2025 as the most lying year in history. And I can agree with that. There are people lying on both sides, Democrats and Republicans. But although if you go right down to brass tacks, the Republicans have just took that to the fucking extreme. They lie every day. They're going to continue to lie every day. And there's not really much we can argue, complain, but until we do something to change the government around, and even if you're a Republican, and I'll say it again, I have voted Republican before. I really was and still am a Ronald Reagan fan. I do believe he messed up with that trickle down theory. But, then I read an article, well, those billionaires, I'm happy they got a tax break. They deserve it. And it's probably written by either some asshat in another country that supports Donald Trump because now most of these real popular accounts on social, on some of the social sites are been exposed as not even living in this country. So that's just more of the Trump propaganda that he's spreading, but he's using other places to do it. Don't get things confused. These very popular accounts really are just foreigners, and they're just rehashing what Donald Trump says. Except for if I comment on them, and don't worry, I do. They'll comment on a lot of people comment, but they don't comment on what I say. They don't comment on what I say, I guess, because I'll tear them up. I don't care. When they start talking about how good of Donald Trump is, I'll just go down the list of pedophile, liar, adulteress, criminal, felon, you know, bankrupt in business. Russia helped him out, met his wife on Epstein Island when she was underage. I'll just go down the list of stuff that's fact. And, I understand a lot of people ain't going to believe it, because Donald Trump loves dumb people. He said it himself. He loves the uneducated. That's why he's fucking with all the systems here. He don't want nobody educated here. Don't worry. Greg Abbott's gone down that same route. No, they don't want people educated. I think the thing that got me the most is banning books, banning certain types of classes. Okay. Uh, First and foremost, I'll say this before I go on this rant, but I am Christian. Don't get me wrong. I'm a real Christian, though. My little buddy I was just talking about, I brought up a Prosana account he used to have by the name of Jamie. Since I'm not giving his name in particular, I'll talk about the Prosana, but in this Prosana, I would have never thought about this myself, and I really didn't care. I wasn't too much on the online stuff, but he made a site as a girl, stole some pictures of one particular one off, and convinced other people to send him females to send him nudes as a gay woman. It was interesting that he would go down that route, but either way it goes, I brought that up just to poke him in the side because I actually thought the account was brilliant. I would never do it, but it was interesting and outside the box to me at the time. But he just went off, started cussing, denying it. Now this is a Christian fella who goes to church and say, "You don't know me, you don't know my belief." Okay, well, first off, I've known this fella all the way back to high school, so that's many, many, many years ago. I remember when he was living off his wife and he wasn't working. He was, over the years did, get some college education and degree and finally get a job. But hell, he didn't do that till he was in his 50s. His wife worked and pretty much maintained stuff. He held some little part-time jobs here and there. But put the fellow in the government, he thinks he's holier than thou. But the truth is, I've made some comments of my own back to him because I remember all the shit that went through his life. Now, no, none of us are good people completely. We all have our bad parts that we've done, bad things that we've done. We're human. What we try to do is evolve. But I'm Christian, so if you say, "Hey, you did this," if I actually did it, I'm going to probably say, "Yep, I did." But I finally got myself straight. I finally got right, and now I just live life and try to do the best I can. Try to take care of the family the best I can. Try to raise my son the best I can. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. We make mistakes. You know, there is definitely some generation gaps between me and my kid. My son's just now 18, and I'm in my 60s. So, yeah, we have some gaps, and whereas I went outside and played and had fun, and we didn't have computers or cell phones or all this other distraction, he sits on his computer a lot. And I find that's kind of, you know, a weird lifestyle, even though I'm encouraging him to get out and do some stuff. So I don't really know, what else to do, but, try to keep encouraging that. He does good in school, so I'm not going to complain. He's in the, I guess his GPA is like a 3.8 something. So he does what he needs to do in school. I can't complain. He's got scholarships. People talk to him about colleges, etc. So I'm not sad or I'm not, mad about it. He does that, but I do wish he'd get on to living in the real world and not in that internet world. That's the problem I have, and I think that's going to cause some issues when he does get off to college and he has to interact with a campus full of people. I've been to college, myself, so I understand. My wife is currently doing her third master's at college right now, so I understand. It is just is what it is. If you follow me for a while, I mean, and I probably should say, yeah, I've been through a lot of changes in the last couple of months, from getting married to surgeries to, just moving and just trying to do the best that I can do with life. Work's work, home's home. Home's a little bit more, I guess, homey. We try to do some family stuff. A couple times a week we try to get him out and go out and do some other stuff, not be stuck in the house all the time. But I'm only fascinated, again. I bring up my buddy because he's supposed to be such a Christian, but when I touched a nerve on him, he was cussing me out, calling me a son of a bitch, piece of da 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 da. He was going down. I'm laughing because I'm like, yeah, this is good Christian behavior. I know it's really good Christian behavior. Again, I'm not perfect. I cuss, yes, I do. I ain't gonna lie. I have my opinion about things, but I think Donald Trump is a fucking asshat disaster, and he's destroying the country. But then there are people that believe this country was founded on religion, but actually it wasn't. That's the reason why we have the First Amendment, freedom of speech. We have freedom of religion, but the government doesn't back any religion. And again, Christians want to think, oh, well, we're founded on Christianity. No, we weren't. Not everybody that, our founding fathers were Christians. Uh, Benjamin Franklin and a few others believe that the stories in the Bible were just that, little stories. They didn't think they held any meat to them. They don't believe in David and Goliath, Noah. They were just uh, fairy tale stories that was told in a book. You know, and if you don't research, I guess you don't know that this is the case if you're not out there researching. But I don't know. I read that we in I read that we invaded Venezuela and took their president, his wife, and family hostage, and I couldn't figure out why. I mean, I know we've been stealing their oil, and I know we've been killing their people in international waters. That's all war crimes, anyways. But then we decided to take it one step further. One step further. That one step further was, we'll just invade their country and take over. And that's just nuts. Well, I know Donald Trump's got a little dick, but let's see if he's got big balls, because Iran said they've declared war on us, Europe, and Israel. So Donald the dump truck and Heck says, why don't y'all go over there and invade Iraq and see what happens? Or I'm sorry, not Iraq, Iran. Go invade Iran and see what happens. I'm curious if you got that kind of balls. You took over Venezuela. Venezuela's a small country, not really big army. That's like Russia walking into fucking Ukraine. And I'm sure Russia's backing you 100% because they're trying to do the same thing in Ukraine anyways. So I've got a problem with how we handle things. We are no longer a country with a good reputation. We are a country that has a reputation of being dog shit. It's all because we have a president that is dog shit, an administration that is dog shit. And, as I said, welcome to the dictatorship. We are in a dictatorship. We can't actually invade a country without some kind of congressional insight. And if these Republicans actually allowed it, they're just as much of dog shit as Donald Trump is. This is the truth. I'm just saying it like it is. Life sucks sometimes. But hey, what can you do? But, like I said, I'm just sharing my thoughts. I just couldn't believe that we actually did it. I mean, I already knew we were killing innocent people in the water. That's a fact. But now we've invaded the country, took out the president. And that's the thing that's funny. So we've been from a country of protectors to now a country of predators. Isn't that sad how fast some ugly ass orange fucking pumpkin criminal can destroy the reputation of the United States? And yeah, let's talk. Tariffs or tax on us. I have to go. My coffee just went up another $2 a can. So now my coffee's jumped about $8 a can for my coffee. I find that's outrageous, but it's due to tariffs. I can't blame the stores that Donald Trump has fucked our country and Donald Trump is stealing from our country. He will always be stealing from our country. He's a fucking thief. He's a fucking con man. And everybody that follows him, dude, y'all probably prime candidates for Jim fucking Jones and his Guyana compound. That's how stupid you people really are. You know, I still found that one hard because I understand the Guyana tragedy. It was in the 70s. I was around. I found it hard to believe that all those people drunk the poison Kool-Aid and believed in a man so much they'd take their life. And, you know, the Bible does say suicide is an offense that takes you straight to hell. So for him to convince them that, hey, suicide doesn't put you in hell, that's something else. So people twist the Bible. Again, my little buddy twists the Bible too. Apparently we look at two different Bibles. We have two different Jesuses. I'm guessing his Jesus is different from my Jesus. You know, there's a misconception of, you know, just kind of like the minister that sat there and said, God is God of war. No, God's not a God of war. He was a God of war in the Old Testament, maybe. But he's not a God of war in the New Testament. The New Testament had new rules that applied, more things that had to be done. And it was all about love, not about war, not about hate, not about anything else. The United States is now a country of hate. It is a country of racial hate. Now think about this. I was curious, you know, here in the United States, we call the African people Afro-Americans, I guess because their descendants is African. In Europe, they just call them Europeans if they're born there. So I was thinking, damn, we are racist. We even refer to them in racist terms. They're just Americans. I mean, think about it. They're just American citizens. I mean, so why do we put Afro-Americans? Same with Chinese Americans. They're born here, raised here. They're just Americans. I don't say it here as saying European Americans or Irish Americans or Dutch Americans. If they're white, they're all just Americans, right? You don't find racism in the way we actually look at stuff. You know, Mexican Americans, well, no, they're just Americans. They were born here, that's fine, they're Americans. Everybody that's born here is Americans. I don't see it any other way. And, you know, Donald Trump is going to get us into World War III. World War III's already started. It just ain't actually affected anybody yet. I laugh about that word, I'll say yet, because it's going to. I mean, you can kind of think it won't, but it's going to. Don't worry. It's going to get worse. It's going to escalate. You know, most of the things I said Donald Trump would do before he got elected, he's already done. You know, that's just because I see what he's trying to do. I saw it ahead of time. No, I'll say it again. He lost the election. They cheated for him. He, say it again, lost the election. They rigged it for him. That is just the way it is. There is some proof, but actually being able to petition to get all those votes hand counted, recounted by hand, will take years, and hopefully that orange pumpkin is dead and burning in hell, because I know he's headed that way along with his family and along with everybody in his administration. They're all headed to hell. And any Christian that wants to follow this man, they're headed to hell with him. You know, that's just the fate they're in. The Bible talks about fooling many Christians, dragging all those Christians down to hell with the devil. Well, we're here at that time. We are in that time right now. And like I said, my grandfather said people in the church were hypocrites. My buddy proved his point. Someone who goes to church every Sunday, but then all of a sudden goes off and starts cussing you out and saying, "You don't know me." No, bitch, I actually do know you. I've known you for years. I've been around when you did a bunch of crooked, shady shit, but now that you work for the government, you don't want that coming out because, well, unlike the Christian, confess your sins and ask God for forgiveness. You don't want to do that. You want to hide your sins. And I find that kind of funny. But hey, it is what it is. We are where we are. Not much I can say or do about anything. I just try to get on here and talk and hope that people understand that we are in some pretty bad times, and I don't really see it getting any better while Trump's in power or anybody that's connected to Trump gets in power. It's just not going to happen. We're just going to continue to spiral downhill as a country, as a people. I ain't dividing people. If they're born in the United States, they're Americans. That's it. We have birthright citizenship, so if your family managed to be here and you got born here, you're an American. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. People want to sit here and say, well, the Constitution this. Well, freedom of speech, and this is the argument I made. If you go back to the 1700s when they were doing the, Constitution, when they were giving us freedom of speech, they gave us freedom of speech so that we could talk negatively about our government without any persecution, or negative about anything without any persecution. My buddy says, well, there's 3 forms of speech that you can't exercise under the First Amendment. Well, not really what the founding fathers were thinking of, because one, pornography, underage pornography is morally wrong, but if you look at it, that didn't exist back in the 1700s. We didn't have the stuff we have right now. So that wasn't even a thought in their mind at all. That was just not a thought in their mind at all. We can make laws that make that illegal, but that just wasn't a thought. They weren't thinking down that avenue. They really just were not. And, saying you can't, say something positive or negative about anything, and this includes Charlie Kirk, who they've tried to immortalize a racist individual that, again, used, Leviticus, the book of Leviticus, which there's so many controversial things in Leviticus. The Christians ignore the things that will get them stoned to death and only talk about the things that are in their favor. This is the actual 100% truth about that particular book of the Bible. It happens all the time. So Christians aren't true Christians. They're only a Christian to what suits them. If this part suits my Christianity, that's fine. But if this part of the Bible doesn't suit my Christianity, then heck no, I don't want to listen to it. It's what my grandfather said about hypocrites. They are hypocrites. My friend is a hypocrite, 100% hypocrite. But that's okay. We run into those people. Now, I'll say it again. I'm not perfect. I've had my share of ups and downs in my life. I've done some good stuff. I've done some bad stuff. That's a fact. I can't go back and change the bad stuff I did. I asked God for forgiveness. I've asked the people involved at the time for forgiveness myself, because I, want to try to live a good life. It's just it. I want to try to live a good life. I want to be a good person. I don't want to be someone who's pushing hate, spreading hate. I'm not really pushing hate, trust me. I'm not pushing hate against the Republican Party, but I am pushing the truth. I think everybody needs to at least look at the truth. They are very wrong with what they do. And that Christian part of me that says they shouldn't be doing it is going to speak. That's just it. And in the end, that's all we can do. Any of us can do is just try to, you know, point out the facts of stuff, point out what's wrong, what's morally wrong, and try to hope that somebody out there hears what we have to say. You know, I'm not no big YouTuber. This is a fact. I have a little bit of followers, but I don't have a lot of followers. Maybe one of these days I'll have a lot of followers, but I only come in here and talk common sense. Just what's common sense. We shouldn't be attacking a certain race just because I don't like what they said to me, or attacking a certain country because you don't like the way they live. Every country, has a right to do what they want to do. I'm not a fan of a communist country, but I'm living with a communist president right now, a fascist. That's the reason why I don't like Antifa. He's a fascist. So yeah, let's spread false information about Antifa because I'm a fascist bitch. I don't want nobody to not to be against me as a fascist because I want to control everything. That's it. He'll be the dictator eventually, or somebody in his cabinet will take over to try to be the dictator. This is the all part of what's going on at the end of the world. And again, I can't say that any time in my 60 plus years of being here have I seen anything as close to what the Bible says happens at the end of days as I see right now. Again, the United States has to fall. Donald Trump is crushing us. We are already falling. You just don't get it. Our reputation is falling. What Trump has done, I'm bringing in billions of dollars. Oh, but buy my $5 million golden ticket to be a citizen. What kind of shit is that? So why arrest these people that are going through the process legally, which, yes, they are doing that. They're arresting people that actually have green cards and working here and doing their thing. They are doing that too. But instead, Trump can take $5 million, put it in his personal pocket, because trust me, that's where it comes from. He just say, oh, approve them. Yeah, don't worry about interview background or anything else. Just approve them, because they paid me money. And as long as they're paying me money, they can come here. You understand this? You understand the way that's actually working? That makes most of what these Republicans are saying, that makes them a hypocrite too. Oh, it's okay for people to pay money to come in the country, but it's not okay to come to the country and work hard and get your citizenship the right way neither, because we'll have ICE arrest you at the courthouses. Yes, that's happened a lot. So we'll just have ICE arrest you at the courthouses. Immigration lawyers are telling their people don't, go back home, while we're in the process of this neither, because you probably won't get back in the country because of this president here. Everybody understands this president's fucking nut. This administration is crazy. If you can't really see it, I'm sorry. But when you're backing the Proud Boys and, these Nazi type groups and, you're a Nazi yourself, because don't worry. Donald Trump is fucking German, so he's a Nazi ass, don't worry. His background is from Germany, and he took the fucking Hitler side of an opinion. But that's just, how it is. Nothing else we can do about it. Like I said, for the time being, there's a midterm coming up in November. We can do something there. We can get rid of the Republicans and let the Democrats start attacking him and impeach his ass and get him out of office. That's what we can do. That's what needs to be done. That's the truth. Anyways, I do appreciate everybody coming and listening to me ramble on for a little bit. I hope everybody has a good day. God bless everybody. Peace out. We'll chat to you another time. Y'all take care. Take care of your families and all.